Hi, it's me, Kimberly Clark, the original de-influencer, and I'm using my experience as an anti-consumerist YouTube beauty guru to help you realize that you are more than the material. This is how to stop shopping in 5 easy steps.
It's what I'm not gonna lie, just to be not gonna lie. I am more than this, I am so much more.
What is selling? Some would say it's a deception, inflating the value of something worthless into something desirable.
I make the fabulous, I make the crap into credible, I make the dull into delicious.
Some would say it's a necessary evil, an art form even.
You hucksters in your tower created religion of mass consumption.
People want to be told what to do so badly that they'll listen to anyone.
I've often described selling as the ways companies talk to us, the consumers. We in turn reply by choosing to purchase or not purchase a product. But if the way companies talk to us is not without intent, i.e. the intention to convince us to spend money, then the way that we listen to them should also be intentional. This is what I mean by identify selling, to know when someone is trying to sell you something and to understand how they're doing it. This idea of listening with intention reminds me of a concept I talk about with my voice students called active listening. It's a way of engaging your imagination when someone else is singing that allows you to learn something about your voice while listening to theirs. You basically imagine you're producing the same sound as the singer and train your vocal folds to emulate the shape of that sound, which eventually allows you to get closer to producing it yourself. We can similarly actively listen to the ways companies sell us products or services through advertising by imagining ourselves in the company's position. If we understand the techniques they use, we can make sure they don't use them to take advantage of us. Heightening this awareness, this anti-consumerist radar, is the first step to building a solid defense against the assault of hyper-consumerist content. So let's take some time to discuss some of the techniques companies use to sell. 1. Relatability. Imagine you're an individual that runs a company that sells a product. Keyword individual. It might be easy for you to get people that are just like you to buy the product, but if you want to sell to different types of people, you need to represent those people in your advertising. But for decades, at least in America, the only demographics that were even considered valid enough to market to were quite limited, i.e. heteronormative and white. This is because of the legacy of systemic racism and sexism that our country's economy was built on. If you were an advertiser in the mid-20th century, spending money targeting groups that didn't have the disposable income to buy your product would be considered a waste. Of course, this wasn't entirely true. There were always communities of color that were thriving all over the country, but the stigma of marketing to them was a risk that most companies were, frankly, not brave enough to take. Today, wealth inequality is still extreme, but those we look up to in society are becoming increasingly diverse. Now, if you want to sell the most products to the most people, you have to represent that diversity in your marketing. This not only increases the relatability of your product, i.e. more people can see themselves using it, but it also improves the image of your brand. There's, of course, some risk in embracing multiculturalism, which is maybe why companies only do it for, say, 1 month a year. But having more diversity in your advertising is generally considered doing the right thing, and being a company that's worth supporting. But supporting a company with a diverse group of spokespeople doesn't necessarily mean you're supporting those people, or their right to exist. Unfortunately, companies that include traditionally marginalized folks in their marketing campaigns are often simultaneously supporting politicians, lawmakers, and lobbying groups that directly oppress those same people. Take the example I discussed in my anti-haul focusing on rainbow capitalism, of the trans employee who was forced to resign from Starbucks because of workplace harassment. Although Starbucks helped raise a few $100,000 for a charity that claimed to help LGBTQ plus teens who were bullied, they also spent millions of dollars in legal fees defending the bullying of one of their trans employees. Hypocrisy much? From the outside, especially if we come from a traditionally underrepresented group, we feel good when we see people like us represented in any form of media, including marketing. And I know that seeing yourself in an ad can feel like an indicator of progress, but Black, brown, indigenous, LGBTQ+, fat, and disabled people have always existed. Do we only matter now because somebody can make a profit off of us? Taking our money does not validate our existence. If anything, it distracts from the actual social justice work that needs to be done, especially when the most problematic companies are the ones profiting. Until the multicultural community that's thriving in Benetton ads can thrive in the real world, I'm calling out relatability or representation in marketing for what it is. Just another gimmick. I'll take my activism ad-free, please. 2. Fabricated deficiency. Okay, so you're an inventor that has just made a super specific tool that solves a previously difficult to solve problem, like a specialized piece of underwater welding equipment. It has one specific use and is made for one specific demographic. The most important strategy for your marketing campaign would be to reach that specific group of people and make them aware of your product. If it was indeed a groundbreaking problem-solving device, your work would be done and your products would fly off the shelves. But now let's say instead that you created a product whose use is a bit more open-ended. Maybe it's a new formulation of some cream or makeup product that already exists. Maybe a new color or shade. Maybe something that is similar to other products, but that you claim is better. It doesn't matter if your product is actually better, you still have to sell it nonetheless. Here is where you can utilize the strategy of fabricating deficiency, or making up the idea that something is either lacking in the consumer or in the market in which your product exists. If your customers have it all, then they won't need your product to complete them, so you have to make them feel like they're missing something. Do your customers need yet another peach-colored blush? No! But if you convince them that they're missing this particular shade of peach, maybe with a particular scent, they'll be more likely to buy it in order to complete their collection. Society constantly pressures us to better ourselves, so we're often drawn to things that promise to improve our lives. If an advertisement tells us that we're lacking something, even if it's a lack that we've never even considered before, we are likely to believe them, because we just want to be better, more complete. But self-improvement is hard work, and it's often a struggle to even begin the task. If an easier problem presents itself, we may avoid doing the more difficult work of true self-betterment. And if that easy problem comes with an easy solution, even better. And a keen advertiser can create a problem and immediately present the solution, all in the same breath. Think, trouble with a capital T that rhymes with P and that stands for pool. When you see an advertisement for a product or service that speaks to you, try to identify if that need existed before you saw the ad. This requires us to be generally in touch with what our needs and desires are at all times. The more we know about ourselves, the more we'll be able to decide if the wholeness an advertisement is promising will actually pay off. This task is no small feat, especially when we compound it with that ever-present, extremely human tendency of social comparison. 3. Social comparison. Isolation. It's something that I describe specifically in relation to racism in my video on white privilege. But it's a multifaceted condition that can thrive, despite the myriad ways we have to connect with each other. In fact, many companies thrive on our loneliness. If we're desperate enough to be part of something else, whether that's people who look a certain way, feel a certain way, or have a certain degree of success, we'll consume anything that claims to make us more like them. Like the way companies can create problems we didn't know we had, they also benefit from showing us people we didn't know we could be. Studies have shown that the most damaging aspect of social media is social comparison. No human benefits from comparing themselves to others, especially online. But companies benefit greatly when their customers strive to be like the people in their ads. Enter conspicuous consumption. The act of purchasing certain products and letting everyone know about it can grant you membership into the in-crowd of other savvy shoppers. Think Birkin bag or the latest trending eyeshadow palette. It's image elevation by association, buying something to simply be able to say that you bought it. and therefore joining the elite ranks of the others who have done the same. If you're selling a product and you get people to conspicuously consume it, you basically are getting free advertising. Telling consumers to share their purchase or use a hashtag when posting about it makes them feel included in something bigger. But it also gives your brand more exposure, which makes you more money. Today, launching a product without a social media component to your marketing campaign is unheard of. Why disregard the millions of poor schmucks who will sell your product for you just because they're desperate to be part of something, to be something or someone? It sounds so ridiculous when we put it that way, but in our isolation, we cling to any tether, any fad that claims to connect us to someone else. We need to cultivate real relationships, so we don't need to constantly be comparing ourselves with strangers online. More on this in step 5. 4. Economics of scarcity. For a limited time only, limited edition, limited quantities available. Sure, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, but I can guarantee you Joni Mitchell was not singing about lipstick. When a company tells you that a product exists in a limited quantity or an offer is available for a limited time, Black Friday, I'm looking at you, they're lying. Now, I don't mean that those discounts aren't real or that there actually isn't only a certain amount of inventory manufactured or remaining. I mean that at some point, there was a conscious decision to limit quantities in production in order to drive sales. Let's say you have a company whose last product sold 1 million units at launch, but after that, sales trickled. If you launch a new product with an inventory of, say, 500,000 units, it's likely that it will sell out at launch. The customers that snag the product will feel special. Not just anyone was able to grab product X. And the customers that miss out will be disappointed, but committed to buying it when it comes back in stock. All of this creates hype and might mean that your restock of, say, 2 million products a few months down the line will fly off the shelves. If, however, you start with that full inventory at launch, the product won't likely sell out, and you'll miss out on the waves of hype that social comparison would create if it had. I'm generalizing here and am specifically critiquing claiming scarcity as a marketing strategy, i.e. a small artisan that sources only a certain amount of raw materials and therefore makes a limited quantity of products is fine by me. But a major brand with a loyal consumer base that underproduces a product to make it sell out is using the economics of scarcity to make it look like the product is more desirable than it actually is. See, we truly do live in an abundant world. There really are enough resources to go around and materials available to make anything and everything that anyone could need. But the CEOs and the 1%ers who hoard most of these resources benefit from convincing us that this is not the case. As Harley describes in my interview with them during the Women's March on Washington in 2017,
there's so much surplus and bounty. It's not like, I think people think that like there's a pizza, right? Yeah. And that the more people that come to get pizza, that the piece of pizza gets smaller. It's not true. No. There's more dough in the back. But we're so busy fighting over this one pizza that we don't go make more pizza. There's enough pizza.
When a company or politician fabricates scarcity, people get desperate. And when people get desperate, they are easily manipulated. When you see a product or experience being touted as exclusive or limited edition, ask why. Is there something actually unique or exclusive about this item, or was its scarcity invented to make it more appealing? Okay, I've outlined 4 different tactics that you, as a smart anti-consumer, can use to identify selling: relatability, fabricated deficiency, social comparison, and scarcity economics. Of course, there are many more kinds of marketing strategies. I mean, people get entire degrees in advertising. And of course, commercials aren't the only form selling takes. I can make an entire video about how packaging design uses similarly problematic forms of manipulation to make a sale. But now you've got a grasp on a few basic strategies typically used in marketing. So let's put your radar to the test. Watch the following ad and think about which tactic or combination of tactics was used. If I did my job right, you'll be a little less likely to buy whatever is being advertised. And I'll make 0.0003 cents in ad revenue to make more videos, to make ads less effective. I mean, I'm a drag queen, so irony is the gig. Okay, let's see how you do. So which method of selling did they use? Could you relate to the paid actors telling you to buy something? Were you told you were missing something that you never knew you needed? Was it implied you'd become part of a savvy group of consumers if you bought said product, and of course tag the company in your post about it? Or were you given an arbitrary time frame to shop while supplies last? Maybe it's a combination of several tactics, or one that I didn't mention. If you like, comment down below and tell us about what you saw. We can pool our research and become more and more able to identify all kinds of selling. I think this is a great place to start our anti-consumerist journey, because ultimately, identifying selling helps us better grasp something that we all unequivocally value: our own free will. We are more likely to purchase things because we think the decision to purchase them has been exclusively ours. The most successful advertising works by subliminally influencing us to the point that when we reach that moment of consumer response, answering the question, to buy or not to buy, we don't think of the ad campaigns or influencers, we just think about how we feel in that moment. We think we're making a decision based on our real desire, but a successful ad can distort our reality.
People want to be told what to do so badly that they'll listen to anyone.
My goal with step 1 is to spark a cynicism in you towards consumerism that, frankly, makes you a harder sell. And in further steps, we'll focus on creating a better sense of who we are and of what we actually need and desire, so that any ad, or influencer, or anything for that matter that tells us we should be something we're not, can easily be dismissed and seen as the ridiculous and empty commercial ploys they are. As algorithms and AI get more advanced, this work becomes increasingly important. Advertisers would like us to believe that a phone that listens to your conversations and shows you ads based on what you've talked about is actually delivering more of what you want to you. But what I want is not necessarily the same as what I'll buy. Does knowing what I'll be likely to buy mean you know me? I think a real-life madman would say yes. But I'm here to give you the confidence that you know yourself better than anyone trying to sell you something can. And that knowledge is power. The power to stop shopping. Congratulations, you've completed step 1 of how to stop shopping in 5 easy steps. Identify selling. If you'd like to support me and my work, consider sending me a tip on Venmo at Kim Clark Queen, or join the House of Clark by becoming a patron of mine on Patreon. Thanks to everyone that's continued to support me over the years. I wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, and I'll meet you at step 2, appreciate making. As always, I'm Kimberly Clark. Bye!
Material.